Hallo zusammen, I'm your Vlog Dave. So I'm talking quite a lot about the German language and many of you are more or less familiar with it, but do you know much about the institutional and systematic side of Germany? I mean, how Germany basically works on different government levels? Today I want to give you a short overview of this side of Deutschland. Alright, just a quick disclaimer before I'm even going to start talking. Since this whole topic is a very complex and multi-layered one, I think it's better to not show myself in the video primarily, but rather trying to express and demonstrate things visually. It might not be perfect, but well, at least I'm trying. The following information are just a short overview of how Germany is organized in an institutional and political way, you could say. Rhyme. I'm not going to talk about specific persons, since this is a general talk about general systematic structures. I'm neither mentioning every single aspect that belongs to this large topic, so don't expect this to be a 100% complete and fully detailed description of things. Alright? Alright. Thanks for your concern. Also, this can take quite some time and be quite technical, so take that time, get yourself a tea, a beer, liquor or just carbonated water like real Germans would do. No, just kidding. First of all, let me ask you a simple question. What is the Staatsform, the general form of government in Germany? Do you know? It's a parlamentarische Bundesrepublik, a parliamentary federal republic. The official international title is Federal Republic of Germany, and the German title is Bundesrepublik Deutschland. No matter which of those terms you are looking at, you basically get the same message out of all. Both institutionally and culturally, Germany is not a single, unseparated unit. Germany consists of 16 single states, the so-called Bundesländer, die Bundesländer plural, das Bundesland singular. They are interlinked both with each other and with the Bund, der Bund, the federation with the superordinate administrative level on a federal basis, hence our country's official title. To give you a really basic idea of how the adjective federal can be interpreted here, some of the 16 states have and make more money than others, so there's a process of redistribution, die Umverteilung, from one state to another. Pretty much the same system also applies between the Bund and the single states. Of course, this is a very simplified explanation, but in the end, that's how our federal system works in the literal sense of the word. Another example is der Bundesrat, which is an important political institution next to the Bundestag, our parliament. It's actually meant to be a place for all the ministers of the 16 states to come together in order to discuss laws and general matters of the Federation and the EU. The type of regime, das Regierungssystem of Germany, is called parliamentary democracy, die parlamentarische Demokratie. People also refer to Germany as being a repräsentative Demokratie, a representative democracy, because in elections you vote for people that are supposed to bring your own interests into a parliament and basically be your voice by representing them for you. Before talking more about the overall German government, let's mention two very important topics. I think it's very important to point out that in Germany there's a division or a separation of the three main political powers. The first one is die Legislative, the legislative power, the process of making laws, basically. The second one is die Exekutive, the executive authority, which is the police to practical realizing those laws. And the third one is die Judikative, the judiciary, meaning the justice system including judges, der Richter Singular, die Richter Plural, and different courts, das Gericht Singular, die Gerichte Plural. The second very important foundation of our society is das Grundgesetz, which is our constitution. It declares basic human values, such as a general dignity for all humans that can't be touched or harmed, no matter which religion, race or whatever you have or are. Those basic laws count for everyone in Germany all the time. And yes, although it's called Gesetz, it is still our constitution, and nope, it's not a debatable subject at all. This is the first and prior thing that also stands above any other ideological or religious beliefs, general rules, opinions, viewpoints or whatever in Germany. The German national government is called die Bundesregierung. Next to different ministers, der Minister Singular, die Minister Plural, and the Chancellor, der Bundeskanzler, the Parliament, das Parlament, or as it's called in Germany, der Bundestag, consists of round about 630 elected parliament members. People also refer to a member of the German Bundestag as MdB, which is a short form for Mitglied des Deutschen Bundestages. The overall number of elected parliament members can change from election to election. Now, there are a few general rules regarding political elections in Germany, and those rules are: political elections in Germany are universally possible, so to speak, which means it doesn't matter how rich you are or which social status you have or things like to be allowed to vote. Some people might be excluded from the right to vote though, because they committed certain crimes and they were punished and penalized for them. Political German elections are directly. This is quite different to the US election system, because in Germany you are supposed to vote directly for both a candidate and a party without any second person coming in and taking over, so to speak. You, yes, you are supposed to go to a local polling booth yourself and to also vote directly. You cannot ask a family member or anybody else to vote in your place. No, that's not possible. Political German elections are secretive elections. Nobody can force you to tell whom or which party you've voted for. All in all, it's supposed to be a solely private matter. And all political German elections are treated equally regarding votes. Each person that's allowed to vote has the same amount of votes, and all votes do count the same, no matter which person voted. This also counts for parties, because all parties have the same chances to be voted for, as long as they are not forbidden parties, of course. Certain handicapped people are granted special regulations for being able to vote through the help of a second person. Because, some people might not be able to read, or some people might not be able to be there physically in a Wahlkabine, die Wahlkabine, a polling booth, so there are some possible help options for those people. There's also the general possibility to vote by letter, the so-called Briefwahl, die Briefwahl. This is especially interesting to both rather, lazy people that don't want to go to a public polling booth, or that might be in another country while still wanting to vote. Regarding both national elections and subnational elections for each of the 16 states' parliaments, all parties that were able to get at least 5% of all delivered votes in a Wahl, die Wahl, the election, are allowed to be part of and to work as members of the respective parliaments. The election for the national German parliament, the Bundestag, is called die Bundestagswahl. The election for a parliament in one of the 16 states is called die Landtagswahl, for der Landtag being the title of each one of those parliaments. Often Germans refer to this rule as the 5%-Hürde, the 5% barrier. The official term is die Sperrklausel, the bearing clause. There is none in communal elections, by the way. Its main purpose is to prevent any kind of extreme fragmentation and extremely splintered parliaments with many, like maybe hundreds of big and little parties in it. In both national elections and elections in the 16 states, the party, die Partei singular, die Parteien plural, that got the most votes is likely to nominate parliament members as both ministers for a certain department, das Ministerium singular, die Ministerien plural, and also to nominate a candidate for the next Chancellor, respectively a state's prime minister, the Ministerpräsident. The election for a parliament in one of the 16 states is called die Landtagswahl, for der Landtag being the title of each one of those parliaments. Both the Chancellor and the Prime Ministers are elected and voted for solely by members of the respective parliaments, by the way. It's common that the 1, 2 or maybe 3 strongest parties suggest possible new Chancellor or Prime Minister candidates. Members of other parties that made it into the parliament and that are not part of the government are the so-called Opposition, die Opposition, the opposition. And, by the way, as a difference to the US system, for instance, we don't have a time limit for chancellors to be, well, chancellors of Germany, basically. So as long as the same chancellor candidate gets voted for and wins the elections every 4 years anew, which is the standard length of a chancellorship and a legislative period, die Legislaturperiode, that person keeps being the old and the new chancellor. Take Helmut Kohl as an example of this. He was Germany's 6th chancellor from 1982 until 1998, so for 16 years that is. That is a long freaking time. In national German political elections, German citizens, meaning people that got the German citizenship and that are at least 18 years old, which means they are considered adults in Germany, and that are having their main residence for at least 3 months in Germany, are allowed to vote for both one representative in particular and for one single party in general. So they are basically expected to give 2 votes at the same time. One for the party itself and one for a single candidate who wants to be a representative in the respective parliament. German ballot papers are called Wahlzettel, der Wahlzettel singular, die Wahlzettel plural. Regarding German Landtagswahlen, it's also possible to vote at 16 in some of the 16 states. In most of the 16 states, the age limit is still 18 though. And again, there's way more to this whole process. For instance, there is an active right to vote and a passive one. Well, but this should do as a short insight into this topic for now. However, once the new parliament and government is finally constituted and determined, the representatives can elect the new chancellor, respectively the new prime minister, discuss political topics, come up with and maybe also pass laws. Now you might think that the Kanzler, a short form of Bundeskanzler, or the Bundespräsident, Germany's federal president, might be the actual leader of the parliament. But nope. In fact, it's the Bundestagspräsident, the president of the German parliament, which should not be confused with the Bundespräsident or the Bundeskanzler at all. This person's main task is to lead debates in the parliament, for instance to announce, begin, to lead and to end certain votings or hold debates in the parliament, and to take care of its functionality in the first place. You might also think that the German Chancellor has the highest protocolic governmental priority in Germany. Well, that is wrong. The Chancellor has the highest practical government powers in comparison, but at the same time the Chancellor is not the highest political person when it comes to protocolic hierarchies in Germany. This is the political and protocolic hierarchy, die Hierarchie for the three most important political authorities we have in Germany. First comes der Bundespräsident. The second highest protocolic politician is der Bundestagspräsident. And the third highest German protocolic politician is der Bundeskanzler. So, although the Chancellor is by far the most common and, well, the most well-known authority when it comes to German governance, both nationally and internationally, it's only the third highest level of political authority we have in Germany. Yes, it's true. Different authorities require different amounts of responsibility and tasks to deal with. The Bundespräsident, for instance, is a rather representative person that doesn't have too much to do with the government's and the parliament's actual work and everyday politics, which can include coming up with new laws, etc. But for instance, it's up to him to sign or not to sign new laws given to him by the parliament. So, without him agreeing to such a draft, the new law cannot really take effect. The Bundespräsident is also expected and allowed to officially appoint and to dismiss ministers and some other political figures. Being different to Chancellor or Prime Minister elections, the Bundespräsident is only allowed to be the Bundespräsident for a maximum time period of 10 years. This also means that he can be re-elected just once, because his standard mandate lasts for 5 years. As it's the case with many other countries all over the world, the national German government and the states' governments are also subdivided into a few single departments. Die Ministerien, plural, das Ministerium, singular, that each deal with different political topics. Each department is led by a minister, der Minister for a man and die Ministerin for a woman. And although I could go on here and talk way more about this whole system, I'd like to switch over to the 16 single states within Germany in particular now. So like I said before, Germany is consisting of 16 single states. Das Bundesland singular, die Bundesländer plural, since 1990. That started when the former GDR, the German Democratic Republic, also known as DDR in the German language, Deutsche Demokratische Republik, ended and became a part of the old Federal Republic of Germany. So my country isn't that old regarding its today's constitution yet, so to speak. Similar to the Chancellor of Germany, each one of the 16 states has its own elected Ministerpräsident, the Prime Minister, and its own parliament, which is called der Landtag. Also, each state has its own capital city. 3 of the 16 states are special kinds of states, so-called Stadtstaaten, der Stadtstaat singular, die Stadtstaaten plural, city-states basically. I'm talking about Berlin, Bremen and Hamburg here. Each of the 16 states has its own elections, its own departments and even partially its own laws in a few specific sections. But at the same time they are still federal states that are subordinated to the superordinate federation, the superordinate German governance. Each state is doing elections every 5 years, whereas national German elections take place every 4 years. Well, unless there isn't a serious reason to vote for a new parliament or in case the Chancellor is, well, basically quitting, so to speak. You might wonder why there are 16 single states within Germany in the first place. This subdivided federal system was basically installed after the end of World War II, when the new Germany was planned and constituted. It's basically a learned lesson from the way Adolf Hitler and the NSDAP regime could get control over Germany as a whole. So in order to prevent a similar future scenario of like a dictator or a dictatorship gaining control all over Germany again, the newly founded Bundesrepublik was subdivided into 16 single states right away. And by the way, it was already extremely fragmented some decades before the First World War, from 1914 to 1918. This also led to the fact that still to this day there are 4 primary political institutions that every single state can decide on and deal with in a comparatively sovereign way. Those 4 political fields are the police, the education system, the churches, and the media. Back then, people thought of those 4 fields as possible ways to get control all over Germany at once again, so they decided to fragmentate those institutions. I think it was a wise idea back then, but over time it also led to some problems here and there, and most importantly to a way larger amount of bureaucracy, die Bürokratie. Some of the 16 states do have more policemen than others. Some degrees in some states might not have been completely comparable to degrees in other German states. Well, although this became better now by introducing so-called zentrale Abschlussprüfungen, like centralized final examinations. Each of the 16 states has its own radio or TV stations that are regulated by public law. They are öffentlich-rechtlich. You can listen to or watch those stations pretty much all over Germany though. Also, the whole schooling system can be quite different from one state to another. Just a quick example. In some states, elementary school includes the school years 1 to 4, while in others it's 1 to 6, and then pupils move on to different school forms. The elementary school is die Grundschule, singular, die Grundschulen, plural. A general law in Germany though is the so-called Schulpflicht, die Schulpflicht. No matter in which of the 16 states you're living, your children have to go to school. There's no way around that. You are not allowed to teach them at home, for instance, doing the so-called homeschooling. That is not allowed in Germany. And well, basically there's no particular problem to cross inner borders in Germany between single states. For instance, when I'm visiting my good friend Vuko, aka Get Germanized, I have to travel For instance, when I'm visiting my good friend Vuko, aka Get Germanized, I have to travel from Nordrhein-Westfalen, which is the state I'm living in, to Niedersachsen, which is right above NRW, which is the short form, the abbreviation of Nordrhein-Westfalen. Nordrhein-Westfalen is North Rhine-Westphalia and Niedersachsen is Lower Saxony. Each of the 16 German Bundesländer is also subdivided into a few other political units, the so-called Regierungsbezirke, der Regierungsbezirk singular, die Regierungsbezirke plural, basically administrative districts. Those units are again subdivided into Landkreise, which again are subdivided into single communities, die Gemeinde singular, die Gemeinden plural, with own mayors, der Bürgermeister singular, die Bürgermeister plural, and own little parliamentary structures and elections on that level. So it's pretty much a consequently subdividing political governance spiral, well, something like that, yeah. So, let's take a short moment to breathe properly after all of this. So you see, it's a pretty complex system on both the general governance level, so just a quick and important reminder, like I said before, this isn't everything I could tell you about this topic by far. I hope I mentioned a few important structures though, and you got a little insight in the political world of Germany and how Germany is basically organized. If you enjoyed this and you learned something, leave a like for the video. Feel free to spread the word about this and my channel in general. Find links to my social media pages and support options such as PayPal or patreon.com in the video description. Thanks for watching, I'm your Vlog Dave. Tschüss und bis zum nächsten Mal. Holy moly.